Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM.
I want to welcome now for our next session one of our former presenters, Dr. Kevin Stacy. He is EL coordinator in Clarksville Montgomery Schools. He's got a wealth of experience. He is the perfect after lunch presenter because he's really energetic. And so we're going to have a great presentation. Dr. Stacy, so glad you're here. Come on up.
Well, hi. I am so glad to be with you today. This is something that I love. I love this more than anything. They were talking about ELPA. I started in 1991 or 2 working with Kurdish refugees when they were coming into Nashville behind Belmont. It's not even there anymore, behind those, in those apartments. It's called Colonial Village. And then from there, that's all I've done, EL my entire, I spent my teaching time in Williamson County in a high school working with a lot of students with interrupted education. And then the EL supervisor said, went to another position. They said, can you be the interim? Sure. Then I went to Metro. I was there for 10 years. I was the executive director for EL there. And now I am in Clarksville working with their program. So I say that this is just in my blood. I love it. I care for it. But I understand challenges. You understand challenges. And that's what ensuring EL achievement, and then there's a colon on the program, navigating challenges, because we all have these challenges. But one thing that I've learned that I've had to go back to continuously is my why. And so when we think about challenges, we think about language proficiency and academic content. Students are coming with interrupted education. What grade level do we put them in? Where do we go to understand what knowledge that they have in their content when they're coming in? And as building administrators and principals and district leaders, teachers, we struggle all the time because why? We want what's best for our children. And it goes back to why we got into our positions, right? It goes back to the why. We think about cultural and linguistic diversity. We have children on the playground fighting each other, getting suspended, and the parents are going, why are you suspending my children? Well, they're fighting. No, that's their culture. That's what they do every day. They're like this? Yes, so we have to understand the different, literally that was a problem in Metro with a certain cultural group because they were roughhousing so rough on the playground, and then they were getting in trouble continuously because of it, and then just that cultural diversity, trying to understand a lot of things. And when we have content teachers trying to understand all of this and teach their content and do EL and IEPs, it's a lot. Why do we do this? We go back to our why. Because we got in this because we love children. And that's what makes navigating challenges worth it. That's why we come to a place and in our minds and in our hearts and we think, why do I do this? Because we all wanted to throw up our hands at one time. It's because, and we went back the next day to work because we love kids. We have teacher preparation issues in regards to we don't have enough EL teachers in the field. And so we have a lot of people, which I'm happy. I'm glad they're wanting to come teach. That's great. But they have never seen a classroom, much less an EL child before. And so we've got to prepare them. That is a challenge today that we have to navigate. Assessment and accountability. To alt or not to alt? 'Tis the question. You know, being in this, I've seen all kinds of tests come in. I've seen there was I think it was the Celta, there's the Elda, there were the Ouida, Elpa, Glenda, Dorothy, and Alphaba. I think that we've all seen them come in. There's a lot of tests. But with each test has its own characteristics, and that in itself is a challenge that we have to navigate. Then we have the students' social emotional needs. The trauma of some of the war-torn areas of the world. And children are coming in traumatized. And how do we meet those needs? And yet, we have Mr. Genius in the left corner of the classroom. How do we meet that child's needs? To retain or not to retain? 'Tis the question. That's the question that I get a lot at the end of the year because they know what's not best, but they read the law and then all of the issues around retention. And then you can't pull your teachers anymore for PD because there's no subs to put in their classroom, right? And then when do I do my PD? And then how do I fund the after-school hours? And then teachers are so worn out after school, they just cannot even think about doing that. You have challenges. So how do we ensure achievement with these challenges? I want to talk to you about a person. Today we're going to be talking about actionable accountability. And I want to emphasize the word actionable because we can be accountable all day long, but if we don't put our feet to the accountability, then nothing's going to change. How do we support and not hinder that conversation? How do we be winsome in the accountability and not detoursome? And what are some strategies? These are some things that we're going to talk about today. But as I think about why, I want to talk about this person right here, Kai-Fu Lee. Anybody know him? Let's talk about him. Kai-Fu Lee, he's from Taiwan. In 1973, he was an EL student in a high school in Tennessee. Oak Ridge High School. Anybody from Oak Ridge here? Do you know Kai-Fu Lee? Well, you're going to be fascinated with him just in a few minutes. Bachelor degree from computer science from Columbia. PhD from Carnegie Mellon University. Honorary, that's his PhD, but then he has an honorary doctorate on top of that from both Carnegie Mellon and the City University of Hong Kong. Chairman and CEO of Sinovation Ventures, President of Sinovation Ventures Artificial Intelligence Institute. Prior to that, he was the president of Google China and senior executives at Microsoft, SGI, and Apple. He co-chaired the Artificial Intelligence Council for the World Economic Forum. He was highly recognized in Time 100 AI, top 25 AI leaders of the world, and 100 most influential people in the world by Time Magazine in 2013. This is somebody that you want on your tech team. He is quite qualified, but this is what's fascinating. He was doing an interview with 60 Minutes, and it was one of those summer afternoons where I think I'd been working in the yard, and it was just, you know how you come in and the TV's just on, and I am fascinated with AI, just fascinated with AI. So I started hearing it and seeing all of the types of things that he was a part of. And so he had created a program that's in New York and all the major cities that is facial recognition. So they're taking pictures of you, and if you have done something illegal, like majorly, they're finding you through these cameras that are out out in the system. He helped create this. And so they did one facial recognition aspect of one person that was interviewing. It was 6 months off of his age. And so he has done tremendous work with AI. He's got a top seller on New York's best selling list as well. Then he starts to talk about a project that he was involved in. And he said, I really had a heart for these kids in China. They're called left behind kids. 70 million left behind kids, because this economic boom in China has caused all of the families to leave the rural areas to move into the urban areas, and they have left their children behind with their grandparents. And the grandparents, I don't know about your grandparents or your mom and dad, but they're like, oh, gracious me, I've got to raise these kids. I just raised you. Now I've got to raise these children. But there was no help. I mean, that was just what had to be done. I want to emphasize to you that Kai-Fu Lee is from Taiwan, not China. And if you know the political world today, that's quite contentious. So he had a heart, and he said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to put classrooms in Beijing and Shanghai, and we're going to use this facial recognition feature, and we're going to create classrooms, and we're going to teach these left-behind children, 70 million in their villages, by teachers in Shanghai and Beijing, and we're going to make sure that they have the technology and all what's needed in order to get lessons so that their education is not left behind. And so the interviewer was patiently listening and going, wait, Dr. Lee. You are CEO, chief executives, Google, Microsoft, everybody wants you as one of their top people in their organization for technology. Why did you decide to work with 70 million left behind? And this was his answer. When I was an EL student, an immigrant student in Tennessee, I did the research and found out where it was from. I had a principal that spent time with me on a lot of lunches to teach me English. And it impacted me so much that I wanted to create this type of feeling of value for other students. And that's why I do this. Who knew at that time, that principal, and I wonder if that principal even knows, that principal impacted 70 million students today. He may not even know. But it was that one experience that captivated Kai-Fu Lee. And that is why he's doing that today. You matter in this room. I hope you find your why today. Because I'm going to get into some of the details and strategies. But the one thing before we get into the strategies and the navigating of the challenges is that we do count. Because we never know what child is in our preview that you may not even know, but the policies or the procedures that you impact or the program that you got started the child didn't even see could be changing the world one day. So today we have to find our why. Why is our why? And that gives us the courage, what? To navigate challenges. And it also gives us the courage to ensure achievement. It makes us work harder. It helps us see beyond the other issues. And so when we look at all the things that he has done, we begin now to think about, okay, so now the grunt work. All right, we are making changes and we're navigating challenges, the many challenges that I just talked about. How do we do it? Especially when you had 100 of them meet you one day. I think of it as a top-down and bottom-up approach. First of all, we've got to make sure that we all are well aware of our English language development services. That is the bottom-up approach. Making sure that our ELD services are top-notch, while at the same time, our top-down approach is our content teachers and the systems in our school. That is the accessibility to content. Pretty much our presentations today go hand in hand. We didn't even get together on that, but it really fits like a glove. Where's our accountability? Well, our bottom-up approach is being held by ELPA growth scores. while our top-down is being held by 10 ready achievement scores. In Clarksville, this was 2021, 22, and 23. This is some of the data of how that I've worked to help navigate some of these challenges, but a lot of this before then was kind of static until we began to really work with whole schools and whole systems on professional development, giving them specific strategies in place, and then we began to see our scores rise. Our EL transitional, 45% from 26%. And then 5.1 with EL and transitional, and this is 10 ready. This is not ELPA. This is our 10 ready scores. From 5.1 to 26.6. And what this means for us is that when we saw some static, we were not so much in the schools. We were mostly working with EL teachers. And then we really moved into a lot of strategies and began to see, okay, when I do PD, I need to really make sure that we are doing it for everyone and not just siloed out. And that's the challenge today. I know many of you are like, I'm not at the seat, if you're an EL person. And trying to get that EL person at the seat. And here's the reality is this. They're with the EL teacher a short amount of time, and they're with the content teacher a lot more of the time. So when we think about strategies and we think about navigating and ensuring achievement, we have to make sure everybody's involved and everybody's at the table to hear what we have to say. An IEP meeting, that's why we have to, one of the state assurances is that we have to be, an EL professional has to be at the table. That's still sometimes hard to get in some different school systems, or it's not systems, but schools' minds, that EL person is vital to making a part of the decision. And so when we look at these ideas, let's talk about the top-down approach, accessibility to content. Well, we have to know the customer. Do you ever feel like this? And then they hand you a chainsaw as you juggle. So we have to know the customer. And I think that that's a problem. I think that one of the challenges that we have today is that EL necessarily doesn't understand content teachers, and content teachers don't necessarily understand the EL world. And I want to tell you in just in a few seconds about with an example that I have. But when we understand that this content teacher is juggling a million things, we have to make it very appetizing for them to, A, want EL students in their classroom, and B, make sure that the strategies are going to benefit all students too. That it's not just like, okay, I've got to do this only for this child. And one of the things too that I tell my EL teachers, when you get that accommodations page, do not check the whole page. Do you know what I'm talking about? Just because you want to make sure? No. Data-driven. What does that child really need? Then check that page. Don't check. I get that accommodations as a content teacher, and I'm like, gracious me. What am I going to do? Spend now I'm already spending to 10 o'clock at night doing this. Now I'm going to have to I'm just not going to sleep anymore. Because they need a dictionary. They need this, they need this, they need this, they need this. And the child really doesn't. So let's be intentional. Let's make it know the customer, know the content teacher. Because I'm going to tell you, you're going to get a whole lot more miles out of the accommodations that are intentional than you are just making sure by checking everything. All right, because let me tell you something. If you build it, they will come. No, they will not. You can have some of the best PD that you ever thought you could bring in. You could bring in Dolly Parton. Well, they would come for Dolly Parton. They would come for Dolly Parton. But they're not going to... Will they come? No. If it's all EL, 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 and I have learned my lesson on that. We have to think strategically if we want them to come. For example, EL teacher, and by the way, this is a thinking map. The similarities are in the middle, and this is a great way, as you see, there's some strategies that I'm including along the way, and this is one strategy, visualizing, thinking. So I've got some compare and contrast going on, differences and similarities. The similarity is between the content and the EL teacher is content vocabulary strategies. I need that as a content teacher, and I need that as an EL teacher. Let's win. But if I say I'm going to do a PD on language difference, good, you're going to get your EL folks. The people who really don't need this training. It's the content people who need some of this training. Or content teachers, they think about achievement. They think about instructional strategies. How am I going to win the masses in relationship to a strategy? They want to work smarter, not harder. And then the EL teacher's thinking language acquisition, morphological practices. Oh, you can get some EL teachers when you go to the TESOL conferences and they get into that the morphology, the syntax, they just really eat that stuff up because that's their line of work. That's what they do. But content teachers don't care about that. Syntax, they're thinking maybe that's a computer program. But what they do care about is this, and where can we find that that compromise of working together? Just take EL out if you want content people to come, but have the content in there. Don't surprise them by saying, oh, guess what? We're going to now talk about morphology. I know you wanted to come and talk about this. No, be honest, but bring those strategies together. For example, question. You will portray the role of a content teacher. Choose a session that you would like to go to. And why did you choose that session? I'm going to have some sessions up here in just a minute. Here's the question. Then you're going to signal. This is a strategy I'm going to talk about in a minute. You're going to signal by putting your pencil up when you have thought of your answer. Then I want you to use this stem. I chose this session because da-da-da-da. Then you're going to share with your partner. And then I'm going to choose the partner. You can either give your partner's answer or you can give your answer. Okay? Now I want to talk about this strategy before we do this. The first thing is accountability, actionable accountability. Actionable accountability means that we have to be the accountability means from administrator to administrator, administrator to teacher, teacher to teacher, teacher to student, student to student. This is teacher to student, student to student. I'm giving a question. Going back to our previous session, low effective filter crashing, which I 100% believe in. I'm giving you a chance, student accountability. You're thinking of the question. You're coming up with your own answer. You're going to let me know when you have your answer by raising what? That's why I know that what's going on. There's accountability there as well. So I'm not going to, my pacing is good. That's my accountability. Then I get to share. This is for the child that's like, I have no idea, my gosh. They're going to call on me. I know it. They always do. Well, you can steal your partner's answer. It's okay. Low effect filter. And then here comes my accountability. You don't know who I'm going to call on. All right? So, getting students to use academic language, English learner strategies for the class, ELD standards for your content class. All right? Think. Let me know by raised pencils when you have your answer. Use the stem now to talk with your partner. Talks amongst yourselves. All right, so let's corner right here. Tell me what you guys stated.
The three of us each chose all three. So.
Okay.
I mean, hold on. I just framed that weird. Each of us chose one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell me which one you may have?
Lean towards?
Lean
I think
toward?
for gen ed content, I personally leaned towards the first one, getting students to use academic language, just because it seemed like more broadly applicable to
More
a
broad,
gen
right?
ed content
Yeah.
teacher.
Exactly. So, exactly. Knowing, and this is huge because I have had sessions for our district Engage, they call it Engage, and where I wondered, why are they not coming to our PD sessions? And it would be for the content teachers. Well, it's because it had EL all over it. So that's why I said, if you build it, will they come? No. And these are great sessions, if I say so myself. But I will tell you what I did, though, a little bit different. So getting students to use academic language, I would agree with you. There was no right or wrong answer. If you had said another one, that's great, because that means your interest would have leaned toward that. But this is probably going to catch more people in relationship to the session. So that is one of the things. But we did bring in a speaker this summer. 7 steps to a language-enriched classroom. It was EL strategies to the core. But from a content perspective, we brought that speaker in. I'm not kidding you. You would have thought that I was a hero. The speaker was amazing because I brought that speaker in. One coach said, "Kevin, that was one of the best PD sessions I think I've ever attended in the district." Wow. You know what? EL didn't get the credit. It's okay, but the work got done. And then I found out I was in a school yesterday. They had hired the same speaker to come in, and they're doing their PD in November from the same speaker. It started trickling. And that, knowing your customer. Navigating challenges, know your customer. Just speak their language. You can still do the same thing. Still do the same thing. All right, classroom accountability. QSSSA. That's what I just did. Classroom accountability works. That means we need to make sure that students are talking with each other and that they have accountability for their answers. Pair share is great to talk about the weather or to talk about your weekend. But what I need, though, is pair share. All right, after you share, I'm going to hold you accountable for your answers. So you better be talking about the work, not about the weather or what you're going to do this weekend. So making sure all of these structures are in place. So classroom accountability, knowing your customer ensures achievement. Number 2, classroom accountability, actionable accountability in the class. And that's what I call actionable accountability. Putting action behind that accountability ensures achievement. That means you're going to get engagement. You're going to make sure that people are talking. How many of you know that you've been in a math and you've done cooperative learning and they say, okay, everybody get in your group. And then there's always that one person that takes over. They talk, or in PD, teachers are worse than students. You got that one teacher and she's going to talk or he's going to talk. And then the minutes going by and they're still talking. And everybody's like, and in math, I was happy to let the lead do it because I was like, that just less thinking on my part and less doing. And so, but that doesn't work. That means the smart get smarter and those that are less smart get less smarter. Because human nature says, let the person who wants to do it. That's human nature. But if you were to say, okay, in math, you're going to do problem A, and you're going to do problem B, and you're going to talk about how you got your answers, but then you're going to work together on how you got those answers, and I'm going to call on you to make sure that you're correct, okay? So that is accountability, because you both have a problem, and you never know who I'm going to call on. Cooperative learning. Cooperative learning done right can give you 23 percentile points on your test. And that is making sure that there's personal independence, and yet there's shared accountability among groups. But that means also they're simultaneously talking. If I were to say, if I were to ask a question, which of this would you prefer? Which session would you prefer? And somebody raised their hand, and I called on that person. Who was engaged? Just me and that person, right? The accountability, though, I took it to the classroom accountability when I said, I need you to share. Simultaneously talking. You keep talking. When we have our students engaged and talking about the work, then where we'll see our achievement go up. If you want to ensure achievement, we get our kids talking and working together and sharing that accountability.
So there was 2 families and 3 students gave $3. And the $3 divided by 2 people is each one got $1 with 50 cents. Why did you choose division? Because division, it's there's like 2 houses and then each one gets 3 candies. Because you separate it in equal
Why did you only wanted to use division instead of addition, subtraction, multiplication, or multiplication?
If you do subtraction, you have to take away 2 times 2 divided by 3, and if you did multiplication, the answer would be 6, and there is no $6. There's only $3.
That's what I'm talking about. Isn't that powerful? When we have students working together, they're going to go home and they're still going to remember that because they were engaged. How many times do we go to see classrooms when, okay, let's do the 100 problems, turn them in tomorrow, and they're working independently. And then we check that work, and we're wearing ourselves out, and we're going home more tired, and the kids are going home rested and driving their parents crazy sometimes because they've got tons of energy. Let's reverse that. Let's make them tired, and let's go home a little bit more rested. We don't have to do all that work. Let's get them to do the work. Let's facilitate their learning. And so one of the strategies that I love about Just Swears is this right here. This is called a conversation placement map, and then this is one of the strategies I work with my teachers on. And I walked in one classroom not too long ago, and they had this placemat on their desk. And so you can either negotiate, fortify, clarify, or create. So you're either creating your ideas, you're fortifying it with support. And this is all free on jeffswears.net. I mean, it's all free. You can go, and he just gives his work out like crazy. He is from Stanford University. He's their research in the Department of Education research chair. You put that placemat, and then you say, okay, I need you. You can either roll the dice, and they can either fortify their example, or they have different, or create another example based on, but this is a conversation placemat. So if you have some ideas, you can change up the placemat, but this is what he uses. So fortify support, either to the text, to self, to the world, or to another text. You can build ideas, negotiate, like a compare, contrast, analyze the text, or, bring out more thoughts and ideas, and create. If you want to ensure achievement, you must what? Teach them not only just to talk, but you have to also teach them to think. Thinking is not something that every child comes to the classroom with because they've never been taught how to think. How do you compare? So our standards are enriched with all of this language. Analyze, compare, contrast. But we forget, we are the language too. I was in a classroom last week, and it was a great ELA lesson, but I'm not so sure what an EL lesson it was, because it was analyze and summarize. And I shared with the teacher afterwards, I said, the lesson's great, but the language, where is the language? What is the language of analyze? What is the language that comes with analyze? You had analyze there, but how are they going to express analyzation? How are they going to express summation? What words are you giving them to help do this? So thinking, if we want to ensure achievement, we also have to make sure that their thinking is held accountable as long as with the strategies that we give them, such as conversation and reading and writing. So give them ways to think. Language and content integration. One of the things that I don't have a problem with content with a lot of the things that in regards to structure. One of the issues that I've seen over my career is helping EL teachers be language teachers. Does that make sense? And so pretty much this is just a walkthrough tool that I created. If you can kind of just start that. And then just kind of make it around, and then I'll just start that. And then you guys can have it go around too, and then we'll figure out who. Anything that I pass out today or any slides, you have access to the slides, but if you want something like a specific slide that you really want to kind of hone in on, I'm happy to give it to you. I'm happy to send this to you too if you want it just to make it your own so that you don't have to. But one of the things that, just real quick walkthrough, is not like a major, this is not like a major, need more? Not a major observation, but this is just like really go through. Essential focus. Notice the first one. We all know what an essential question focus is. But the first one says the question lends itself to explore the language. Explore the language around self and the world as they answer the question. How are we going to develop that language? And looking at the essential question. My objectives by domain, if you'll look, are centered around reading, writing, listening, speaking, but are they designed to move them to the next level of proficiency on the ELPA 21? That's important. So we're going back to language again. Instructional strategies. Did you include sentence stems and starters? Do you have signal words? Word banks. These are just examples. They may or may not. Thinking maps. Juicy sentence. Are you familiar with juicy sentence? Love juicy sentences. Lily Wong Fillmore created that strategy, but you take one sentence of the unit that is the most difficult, and you take that sentence and you grab it and you juice that sentence for the next 2 weeks. About 1 minute to 2 minutes every day. You highlight that. Why is that strategy so important? It gets into the details. It's the 8, 9, and 10 ELPA strategy. It gets into the word level and the phrase level of the sentence. It builds perseverance, so when they find difficult sentences, they don't skip over them. They find ways to attack those sentences. And then it also builds up strong syntax and helps them become better writers as they begin to navigate text and strategically work with different words and different levels as that sentence calls for it. That's juicy sentence. Wordplay. But all of these are strategies in order to build that language cultural relevance. We talked about that earlier today, how important that is to lower the effect. And then student engagement. Assessment and feedback. This is probably, again, going back to actionable accountability. If our students are not being assessed on their language and given feedback on a regular basis, they're not going to grow on a regular basis. The more that you give feedback to students on their language, the more they're going to grow. But if we just have a bunch of language and we're not giving feedback, the child does not know what they did wrong or right in order to build their language. I need to stay here for just a second because this is so important. If we want to ensure achievement, we have got to make sure that our teachers and we are giving regular feedback. That means if they didn't use that phrase correctly and you did not give them feedback, guess what they're going to do tomorrow? They're going to use the phrase incorrectly again. Until you say, that's not how we say it. This is how we say it. Can we write it? Let's talk about it. Let's practice it. And then they may say the phrase incorrectly tomorrow, but Krashen, you heard a lot about Krashen today, but Krashen also has what he called a monitor. There's a hypothesis by Stephen Krashen called the monitor. And the monitor says, if you tell a child, this is not, they hear it and then they hear it correctly, the monitor picks that up. And then when you explicitly say, no, we put the preposition here, not here. So let's practice that. The monitor picks that up. So when the child says, store to, to the store, the monitor begins to teach the child in language acquisition. So that's important. Feedback is important, and then text-based practices. So you can, use it or abuse it, throw it away if you want to. It's whatever you want to do. If you want my email, kevin.stacy@cmcss.net, and I think they have those resources for you, but send me an email and I'm happy to send you whatever. When we look at the standard, and so when they were looking at the IPG today, I wanted us to talk about that, for example. The best thing to do when we think about IPG or content related, aligned to ELA, to science, is we look at that standard and what is screaming language out of that standard. For example, use models to describe that energy in animals' food used for body repair, growth, motion, and to maintain body warmth was once energy from the sun. So when we think about this standard, from an EL perspective, we have to understand there's two types of concepts. We have brick words and mortar words. Okay? The brick words are the main content words, what needs to be explained. The mortar words are what our EL students really have trouble with. Native speakers get mortar words. They all have problems with brick words. So sometimes you may need to emphasize some of the mortar words. How are we going to use signal words to describe this? Is this going to be like a flow? First, second, third, fourth, and then? Is this going to be, are we working with cause and effect? Why? Because? So that? How are we using these words? So when we look at standards, when we squeeze that standard, what language is dripping from that standard? And that's what we focus on with the EL in regards to the language. Visual learning, graphic organizers, anything that will help our students visualize their thinking is important. I have a certain set of tools that I use that are specific to visual organization, but whatever you use, John Hattie says that you're going to get 0.6 effect in relationship to visual learning. That's powerful. That's over a year's growth. And then when you begin to think about it from a metacognitive perspective, and you begin to look at the text and you talk about it, read about it, and then you have that graphic organizer. So visual learning. Let's go back to my rule number 1, know your customer. Everybody needs visual learning for all students. But it really gets into the EL student because guess what? They can visually see what's going on, and their brain can put in a lot of words in their own language to compensate for that picture, even though they didn't understand half of the words you said. But that picture says what? 1,000 words, right? That picture says 1,000 words. We talked about signal words. Sentence stems, I'm not going to belabor that. We've heard sentence stems this morning through our other presenters. I talked about juicy sentence, and I talked about QSSA. These are strategies that help us make sure that the lesson is actionable. Now, Nancy Motley was the speaker that I had come into our school system that everybody loved. And she also wrote the book, Talk, Read, Talk, Write. Talk, Read, Talk, Write basically is this. You talk about it, read about it, talk some more about it, and write about it. Because the oil in the engine is going to be the talking. It gets it going. Talk, 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 talk. And we're building what? Background knowledge. We go to the text. We read about it. We're knowing more information from it. And then we're going to have to process that. We're going to talk, 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 talk some more. And you can do that over and over and over again. I highly recommend this book. All right, strategy. And as we start to kind of wind down, strategy here is this, is that align your work. If you are a district person, align your work to other programs. Get that conversation going. This is one way to align. I just use this simple thing right here to align the big picture. So that when I am talking in my PD, people can work together to align initiatives or align programs in your school. If you're an administrator, how does everything fit together? This is just an example. Here's an example of the task. I want the student to master the task. The task is the summative. Whatever that is it an essay? Is it a presentation? Whatever the task is, but how am I going to get that task done? Well, I need academic language to do it. And we're either going to be reading, writing, we're going to be reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And this is a generic. How do I domain enriched, fluency, SEL awareness, and standards? The main goal for this slide is this. Help people see how it all fits together. Because if you do a PD on this, and you do a PD on this, and you do a PD on this, new teachers are going to struggle on how it all comes together. Because they're drinking water out of a fire hydrant. They need something to bring it together. So, as an administrator in an administration, we want to help that. It could be as simple as this. I laid my clicker down. Or you could actually bring out each of the other models. And I have different models for this. I have one for just a generic one, and then I have one very specific as we work with the EL teachers, in relationship to different ways of doing things. But just a simple model. Each of you know about this right here. You get this at your district. This is your score report. Now, you don't see all the other, but you can see. If you want to ensure conversations from an administration or from the district, have conversations about this data. Ask your EL teachers, hey, this is the percentage that we had. What are our goals for next year? Having that conversation makes them feel valued. It does. It makes them feel valued. Because one of the things that I have heard across my 20-something years is that the EL teacher feels that the principal doesn't know who they are sometimes in the building. And they kind of get left behind. And it could be because the percentage is so small compared to the masses. That's navigating a challenge. Or it could be various reasons, or they're a great teacher. And I've got other things I've got to handle before, because they're great. But at the end of the day, teachers get burned out when they don't feel valued. So it's important that we also find their why, as it is important for you to find your why. Because if anything today, we need teachers, and we need them to stay. And the best way to keep people here is, I'm going to tell you what, we are not in this for the money. I don't know about your paycheck. We're not getting it for the money. But everybody wants to feel valued. Having data conversations, don't be scared of it. Be empowered by it. Because it can be empowering. Hey, I noticed this, but how can we make this better next year? How can we move this up? How can we help you move this up? This is everybody's problem. Or having that conversation with the EL teacher would be so empowering. You know what I thought? We are not focused on EL enough. I need you a part of some committees, because you know what I realized? This is not your problem, it's everybody's problem. How can we help you? You think that teacher is going to go home and eat a steak that night to celebrate? Wow! I just had a conversation with the principal and he wants me involved in committees. You know, there are some teachers that hide from committees. Now, I don't know one EL teacher that hides from a committee. They want to be involved. They really want to be involved. They want to even start like a whole school. So what is your EL data? What does your trend data say? How are you addressing the needs? These are things that we can talk about in those meetings. And then bring it about that it's everybody's problem, and how can I get this out to our principal? You know, don't scare them and say, you're going to be presenting next week at the faculty meeting. I mean, that might push them over the board. But ask them if they might want to. They may want to do a group work. How are content teachers responsible? Making sure that we have those conversations. This is called actionable accountability. Actionable accountability. So as we look at the bottom-up approach, having that conversation tool, and then I want to show you something really quick. In ChatGPT, how many of you have heard ChatGPT? Oh. There is a way that you can go in and create your own ChatGPT. Did you know that? Yes, I created one, and I'm going to just kind of share with you. And so I am going to go over here. And so this supports Tennessee EL teachers with ELPA 21. I even worked on this as they were talking, because I was uploading documents from the State Department as we were doing this. So I created this. You're happy to have this link. And so you can tell it what kind of lesson plan you want, everything you need. So I'm going to say, I need a ELA lesson. I'm going to do this really quick, and it's very forgiving for spelling, but everybody's watching me right now, and I'm very nervous as I spell. It's like you're all over my shoulder, breathing down my back. All right, let's just say I'm a new teacher and I have no idea what, I'm just saying, oh my gosh, I've got to go teach today and I don't know what to do. Let's just see what it does with this. The more you give it, the better it is. So it's now giving you vocabulary words and strategies. And I forgot to say chapter 1. It's doing the whole book. So it would be better if you say, it would be better for you to say chapter 1. You kind of get the gist. That's why it's like going crazy. Guided reading and vocabulary mapping, allegory discussion, role play dialogue, writing task, scaffolding strategies, word banks, graphic organizer. All right, so you can kind of see that's in general. But I created one specifically for my teachers, all right? So this is all of my PD, kind of some of the things that I've talked to you about. So I'm going to go to that. It's called Ella. Come on, Ella. Wake up. This page isn't responding. There we go. There we go. I want them to have an essential question. There's their learning objectives. Here's reading, writing, speaking, listening, in student-friendly terms, background knowledge, vocabulary and sentence structures, sentence stems they can use. I do thinking maps in our district, 3 ELLs approach. Here's the QSSA in regards to that. Juicy sentence, and there's an example of one, sentence frames, and then activities. My formative and summative, and then I can ask it for the top 10. Work smarter, not harder. I'm happy to give you some of the links if you want to play around with it. I've got the ELPA 21 standards in. I even just uploaded the IPG work within it, so it will even, if I go in now and I can say, can you please make it IPG friendly? It's happy to do so. So I want to close with one last thing. Oh, let's see. Can we go back to the other screen? There we go. As you know, the Hippocratic Oath for all doctors, I changed it up. I will respect the hard-won scientific gains of those educators in whose steps I walk and gladly share such knowledge as is mine with those who are to follow. I will apply for the benefit of all students, all measures that are required, avoiding those twin traps of teaching to the masses and stereotyping students. I will remember that there is an art to education as well as science, and that warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh a benchmark or a teacup store. I will not be ashamed to say I know not, nor will I fail to call in my colleagues when the skill of another are needed for a student's intervention. I will respect the privacy of my students, for their problems are not to disclose to me that the world may know. Most especially must I tread with care in matters of specific needs and student emotions. If it is given to me to help families, all thanks, but it may also be within my power to call professionals in case of abuse. This awesome responsibility must be faced with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty. Above all, I must not play God. And that, I thank you so much. I hope that I've given you some actionable steps, some strategies along the way, and some tools to help make your life a little bit easier.
All right. So, questions. And while I'm waiting on all the hands to raise on these questions, Dr. Stacy did a presentation for us on juicy sentences in fall 2019. You can go to our website and watch a full presentation on juicy sentences because it was great. And fall 2019 in the ELL Collaborative, you can see more explanation and examples of juicy sentences. All right, let me hear from you. What would you like to ask Dr. Stacy?
When you got to Clarksville schools, did you struggle with the mentality of some of the teachers? For example, I'm at Smyrna High School. We have phenomenal teachers. However, I'm having to change the mentality of like, I can't send all of the EL students to the ESL teachers because we have so many of them. So we have to push them out. And so changing that mentality and getting them to buy in, I almost feel a little bit of a pushback. It's getting better, but a little bit of a pushback because they're like, it's something else on my plate. And I have to make sure that I keep myself in a good headspace and saying like, well, at this point we have 1,038 Spanish speaking students. We have one of the highest EL populations in Rutherford County. So like if you don't want to teach these students, then yes.
Yeah. So, yes. But I'm going to say in general of all the places I've been in just my 20-something years of experience, I have always had that problem. But I'm going to tell you why. Is because they don't know better. There's been systems set in place that even go way beyond you. This is the way we've always done it. And so that's why having, that time with your principal and even just saying, hey, can I talk to you about some things that I'd like to share? I'll give you a perfect example. So one of my teachers were short staff in one school and he was dying with IOPs. I took his classes for the day. I taught his classes. And I said, you go work on IOPs. Because I would love to do that, but I can't individualize an IOP for that child because I don't know the child like that teacher does. I said, you go do that, I'll teach your class. So I'm teaching now, it's like 5th period, 6th period, and I'm rusty. Because it's not like I go in the classroom and teach every day. So, but I start seeing the students are coming in. I'm like, I thought I just taught you. Where are you doing? Oh, so-and-so sent me in here to take a test. Go back. So now me saying go back is a whole different story because I'm central office, right? So I say go back, and I'm waiting to hear that now. I'm just waiting any day. This is last week. It was Thursday. Yeah, so I'm waiting for that to come back. But I wanted to send a message to the school. This is not right. And then you know what I did yesterday? I went to the director of high school and said, this is not right. How can the EO teacher teach and then have 50 kids come in to try to take tests when it's the teacher's responsibility to scaffold? So I think a lot of it is that communication. Now I can do that, but you need to work the system of like going to the principal and saying, if you want me to effectively teach these students that I have, I can't scaffold test at the same time because this teacher doesn't want to. That's their job.
I addressed it at our faculty meeting, and I was like, you're not going to send them. Like, this is not okay. Like, this is part of your job. Sorry.
Yeah, and state assurances will help you with that. The state assurances, there's 10 assurances, and there's some that address the capacity of the content teacher and making sure that scaffolds happen in the classroom. So the state assurances will be on your side for that.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is an opportunity. You have the ear here of someone with a lot of experience. So what else would you like to ask Dr. Stacy? You know, in the room we have rural districts, we have suburban districts, we have urban districts, we have districts that are well-resourced, we have districts that are under-resourced, well-staffed, understaffed. Any questions along those lines you'd like to ask Dr. Stacy?
I guess the biggest struggle that one of our struggles is scheduling. Receiving services, where do they go? You know, RTI, intervention, all these things. So I know there's some questions that we don't have an answer to, or that there's no fix for. But going back to this previous conversation, how would you suggest talking with our faculty about those challenges?
Going back, so there's, in Tennessee, we have to, if a child is not getting the 60 minutes in elementary or the class period in middle school or high school, we're supposed to fill out a waiver. And the waiver goes to the state, and it's supposed to be signed by the superintendent. So I'll tell you how I address that. So every waiver has to come through me first, and then I have a consultation with the teacher about that. And I basically tell the teacher, now look, you don't need to make sure, this does not need to circumvent the principal. So on that waiver, I created another waiver for the state. I don't know if they know that yet. And I've put the principal's signature down. Well, so that has stopped in some ways. Because then it has all the signature, like the commission, the superintendent, all this. Our principal does not want the waiver going to the superintendent and then to the commissioner. And so that has helped, that actionable accountability, I'm really big into that. That actionable accountability has helped solve, like they go to the principal and the principal's like, we're not filling out a waiver on this. We'll figure it out. And so they figured it out. It's amazingly how they figured some of this out. So that's one of the things that I did, is just putting the principal's signature on that waiver. That helps. But I think that is key, is that the EL teacher needs to go to the principal and say, look, this is a big deal. How can we, but if you can't, you can't, and I think the state needs to understand too that we've got a lot of students that have a lot of services and needs. And then I also go to my special education department and say, hey, do our students need these amount of services? Or is this something that's just followed up year after year after year after year? They've had it this year, and then they have it this year, and then they have it this year and this year. So that accountability needs to go to special education too. To say, really, do we need these services? And if we do, and there needs to be you at the table asking some of these questions. And if you don't feel comfortable asking these questions, then someone from the EL office at your building or somewhere there needs to ask some of these questions. And I think that's key. We're not going to, my why is kids. And I can grant you, the older you get in life, the more loose our lips get. I get that. And probably mine have become a little bit looser in relationship to kids, but it is about kids. I want the best for students. It's not about me. If it were about me, I don't know if I would be doing this, to be honest with you, but it's not. It's about kids. And what is best for students is what we have to be kind of vocal about. And knowing that if it's for the betterment of our students, then we need to say something.
Follow up? Yes, right here.
Going with our special education students, do you have any resources or people you can think of that we can go towards to find resources for like our students in an inclusive, like in a AIM classroom, like our EL students, because a lot of our alt students are staying stagnant on that scale. So a lot of my people are asking for ways to help these students increase their proficiency. And then especially with the new reports that just came out on Tuesday, like they've changed that.
Two things there. So I guess I need to know the focus for EL classes or focus for like content classes?
No, EL minutes for our AIM students.
So one of the things that I think that it's some of the strategies, and really hone in on visual learning. And we have a set of, and I'm happy to talk to you afterwards. I don't know how much can I talk about brands or what I use personally? Okay, so I use thinking maps, yeah. And I love thinking maps. The research, Johns Hopkins University did a third-party approach. They did a third-party study on thinking maps, and they found that that schools that did thinking maps did about 3 times better than the district in math, and almost, it was 2.8 or 2.9, I can't remember exact, and they were 2 times higher in ELA than the district. But one of the things that I feel that my scores went up in relationship to that was because we started doing this approach about visual learning, and then how that visual learning lend itself to talking, it lend itself to writing, and it lend itself to reading as well, because the maps became a net from reading. And then from the net from reading, we went to talking. And then from talking, we went back to the text again. And then we used the thinking maps as a means to writing. So that whole approach, but then just chunking it for our alt students in a way that made sense. But we may have some waivers. I'm sure of it in relationship to that time, because I don't think some of our students need 60 minutes, depending on their disability, of course. So I think we have to do what's best. So I'm not saying that the waiver is bad. I'm just saying there's going to be some waivers, but if I'm going to stamp, my name on those waivers too, I want to make sure that we've done our due diligence in making sure that the time is what the child needs. Did that answer your question? Okay. I got worried after I got into it.
We've got time for one more question. Remember, sometimes the question you think, should I ask it, may be of help to other people as well.
The Learning Walk guidance that you passed out for us to look at, I'm assuming that that's specifically for the ELD classroom. Do you, in the counties that you've worked, do you all have curriculum that your districts require being used in the ELD classroom? Or is that something that teachers create on their own? Or what is your guidance around what they're teaching during that time? And these look-fors, how are you correlating those things?
So I don't want a curriculum for ELD. I'm going to tell you why. Because if you get a curriculum for ELD, you are stuck to a proficiency level. And then you either are way above one level or you're way below another level, and you've got a book, and that's all you're going to do. And we also have, but what we do is we really want them using some of the ELA text that are in the classroom. And then with the types like ChatGPT, like you can upload text, and we can actually send that text home at grade level. You can tell Chat to say, I need this at this Lexile level, and it will make it that Lexile level. And then they get to take it home, because that's less frustrating. But I always tell my teachers, look, your job is to make sure they have access to this text. So for a beginning student, it may be 3 or 4 sentences. They've got exposed to that, but we also need to find some text where they can feel like this, because there's some that the text is way up here. I do believe that we expose them to this text. And that may be a sentence or two, like for a newcomer, but we expose, because we don't want our EL students. I walked in one classroom, this has been like years ago, and the teacher was talking like this. Now, you go to where? To store? And our children, I'm like, that's what they're hearing as model. That monitor is like freaking out. And so we want them exposed to that academic language so that they can mimic that academic language. And so I say get the text from science, math, history, but use the ELA. But then I focus with my ELD teachers that you are the language, that the goal is not to do the plot of the story. The goal is to take that sentence out. For example, here's 3 sentences for a newcomer class. All right, here's complex text. I use a thinking map. I use a bubble map, which is a describing map. I take out those descriptive adjectives and I use the character, and then I start making sentences with those descriptive. But I use the text. And then I talk about it. They're going to use it in talking. And then we come back to the text and they read the sentences again. And then they're like, oh, wow, I understand it now. Okay, great. Now we're going to what? Talk about it some more. And now we're going to move it into writing. Now let's go back to the text. And they're like, oh, I understand this. I built that comprehension up. Then we can go down to the next sentence. But then I also want to have text where they can read too.
Who trains your teachers to do that?
My team, but there's just 3 of us. And we're going crazy. Yeah.
But you can watch the CEM collaborative videos and get some of that training. Dr. Stacy, this has been jam-packed with great stuff. Thank you so much for this presentation.